I don't even know how to start this. That was a soul crushing defeat. And I'm just going to be talking strictly, well, not strictly as a Sixer fan, but I'm logically trying to see the game from a bird's eye view, but also like as a fan and as somebody who has been a fan of Joel Embiid since his days at Kansas. If you're an Embiid fan, that or a Sixer fan, that was a, and I just finished watching the Rights to Ricky Sanchez live post game podcast. And one of the hosts, Spike Eskin, put it best. That was a soul crushing performance from Embiid today in game 7 against the Boston Celtics. Just from, I can deal with the missed shots, but the effort on both ends of the floor, the effort on the boards, just everything about that. And yes, Harden, predictably, I did not expect James Harden. And that's, you're kind of in a bad place when you expect one of your best players to not show up in a game 7 because he has a history of pooping himself in elimination games. But as far as Embiid, that was just a soul crushing performance. And the generational slander that the Sixers are currently getting from everybody, including Sixer fans, is very much justifiable. Embiid got his third fucking rebound late in the third quarter. His third rebound. Early in the game, he gave up an offensive rebound to Robert Williams. He missed a few jumpers, and the way he was running back on defense a lot of the times was just not with purpose or anything. He was just jogging back. I just knew this was going to turn bad quickly because PJ Tucker had 11 fucking points in the first quarter. And honestly, I wish Doc had made the adjustment and put D'Anthony Melton in the starting lineup instead of PJ Tucker so you can get the Harden and Embiid pick and roll going with more space. And we got fooled by the first quarter. PJ Tucker hit all the threes the Celtics gave him, had 11 points in the first quarter. And then, pulling up the box score right now, PJ Tucker finished the game with 11 points. It was a nice mask to what was coming offensively because the role players, Maxey even played his ass off. D'Anthony Melton played his ass off. The Harden lineup with no Embiid was a +3 in its first stint, 9-point lead. The role players were keeping us in the game. And of course, the Celtics make their run. Jason Tatum, that was the other thing too. Jason Tatum absolutely fried Embiid in this game every time. And by that point, there were even some shots where Embiid contested the shot well, and Jason Tatum at that point was already on fire. And like the guys on Inside the NBA say, when the house is burning, you got to get the wife and the kids out because that thing burned to the fucking ground. Jason Tatum with 51 points, 13 rebounds. 13 rebounds in this game, more than Embiid. I'm pretty sure Tatum out-rebounded Embiid in this series because Jason Tatum has been a hellacious rebounder in this series. Jaylen Brown finished with 10 rebounds. It was just an absolutely pathetic performance. Like, there's no other way to put it. Like, yes, Joel Embiid is injured. He has a sprained LCL, but this is now what? His only healthy playoff run was the bubble. In the bubble, players got 3 months off. So every playoffs, Joel Embiid has had some injury, whether it's a freak injury or not. You know, all the broken faces, the torn ligaments in the thumb, the meniscus in the 2020-21 playoffs. The LCL sprain here going for a chase down block in the Brooklyn series. I mean, at some point, it all has to matter. Joel Embiid is 29 years old, and as of right now, he's the only MVP in league history to not make it out of the second round. He deserved the MVP. I had him as an MVP. and he just didn't show up. And your reevaluation of Embiid as a player is very well justified. I mean, I'm recording this after emotional Game 7 loss, but I'm reevaluating how I view Embiid as a player. There was a time where I thought he was the best center in the NBA, and then Jokic took that spot for me after the conference finals run, and then Embiid made massive strides when Doc Rivers got hired, and I had him as the best center again. I think that debate is over. Like, it's over. Like, Jokic, the other guy, is having probably the best playoff run by a center in NBA history. And that's not hyperbole. And even if it is hyperbole and you can pull up stats to disprove me, I'm not that far off from my proclamation. But that's over. I still believe you can build a contender with Embiid, but I don't think he can be... You need a lead guard with Embiid because, let's face it, the playmaking, as much as he's made incremental improvements, he's just not an instinctual playmaker. And building around a guy like that, it can get tenuous at times. And I say that, I mean, the Sixers really had their chance in Game 6 where they just blew an opportunity. They were up 83-81 with 5 minutes and 57 seconds left. And they proceeded to score 3 more points for the rest of the fourth quarter. From that time they had the 83-81 lead to the end of the fourth quarter, the Sixers scored 3 points and lost the game. So maybe we're having a different conversation. But again, that's not the reality we're in. The reality is Joel Embiid played like absolute shit, did not put in any effort, and any reevaluations you have of him as a player is completely justified. Still think he's an elite player, but the fact that he's 29 and we always have these, disclaimers like when he's engaged, he's the best defender in the NBA. When he's engaged, he could be a terrifying rebounder. Well, he wasn't engaged in this game, and it was the biggest game of the process era of the last 20 years, and he no-showed. And that's just fucking unacceptable from an MVP. There's higher standards now, and I don't think they're going to trade Embiid. I think we're a few summers away from that. The guy is still in his prime. He's still a top 10 player. But the lead guard cannot be James Harden. As much as I think the James Harden-Ben Simmons trade was a success, and we won that trade, it's just very clear now, just in terms of on-the-court mentality, and I still think in some ways Joel Embiid has a few playoff runs to kind of salvage his reputation, but Harden, we know who he is at this point, and especially now that he's older and you can't trust him to finish a layup anymore, I think the lead guard has to be different. The Sixers had the mix. They had Jimmy Butler. They had Joel Embiid. That was the duo right there, and it goes all the way back to that. But it doesn't even go back to that. Maybe one day I'll make a video about how the process fucked up, or not the process itself, but what happened post-Hinkie during the process is kind of what led us to the team that we have now, which was a good team, but limited in a lot of ways. Notice how Boston, uber athletic, multiple guards can guard up and down their position, multiple small forwards who can guard up and down their position. Tatum and Brown, probably the best wing scoring duo in the NBA. Well, not probably, they are, because Kawhi Leonard and Paul George never stay healthy. They have bigs, multi-versatile bigs that can do Robert Williams, one of the most intimidating shot blockers when healthy in the NBA. Al Horford, still 37, 4,500 years old, and can somehow still shut down Embiid, even though during the season that wasn't a problem for Embiid, but I guess in the playoffs from now on it is, but it's just a disappointing performance all around. No one should take this team seriously until they could prove it, which I don't think will ever happen, but, weird shit happens every year in the NBA, but the Sixers had a golden opportunity. If they had closed out this series, they would have whoever had won this series would have been heavily favored against the Heat. I truly believe that. Even though I think the Heat still gives the Sixers some problems, I still would have picked the Sixers. But the path to the finals was right there, and they blew it. And they didn't just blow it in Game 7. They blew it in Game 6, but in Game 7, they lost in only the way the Sixers could, which is in total embarrassing fashion. Somehow, and I saw this on Twitter, which made me just very fucking sad, but somehow the Sixers are 0-3 in Game 7s in the Joel Embiid era, and somehow the Kawhi Leonard 4-bounce shot is the third worst loss of those Game 7s. Not great. It sucks.